Onward!
roared Wolfgang, and, tanks in the van, they smashed through the festival fence, raced over the hills, troops trotting double time, and unhesitatingly charged out onto the bridge. Wolfgang stood at the back seat of the von Rundstedt Mercedes, his black-gloved hands gripping the back of the front seat, the wind blowing through his crew cut like a field of wheat. Suddenly, beside him, Wilhelm screamed.
"What is it now?"
yelled Wolfgang over the roar of his advancing army.
"The lives we are about to take,"
the voice of the Luigar grated.
"They are mine, yes? All mine."
Listen to me, you energy vampire. We have other debts to discharge and other projects to complete. There are 23 of our faithful servants waiting in the Donau Hotel to be transcendentally illuminated. They come first. You'll get yours. Wait your turn.
"Farewell,"
said the Luigar.
"I shall see you at the hour of your death."
I will never die!
"Fool!"
the voice shrieked with Wilhelm's mouth. Suddenly, Wilhelm stood up, threw open the door of the car, and hurled himself out into the lake. He struck with a huge splash, then sank like a stone. A greenish glow spread in the black water where he had gone down. And then there were four. Hagbard stood atop a hill, watching the tanks roll across the bridge, followed by the black Mercedes, followed by troop carriers and artillery, followed by trotting foot soldiers. He knelt beside a detonator and shoved down the handle.
Oh, jeez.
From end to end, the bridge and those upon it disappeared in geysers of white water. The thunder of explosions, demolition charges placed by the Porpoise Horde under the direction of Howard, re-echoed through the hills around the lake. The tanks went under first. As the front end of the command car sank under water, Werner Sauer screamed,
My foot's caught!
He went down with the car, while Wolfgang and Winifred, their tears mingling with the water of Lake Totenkopf, splashed about in the water with a few remaining super-Nazis. And then there were three. Hagbard shouted,
I sank it! I sank the George Washington Bridge!
Is anything changed?
said George.
Of course,
said Hagbard.
We've got them on the run. We'll be able to finish them off in a few more minutes. Then there'll be no more evil in the world. Everything will be ginger peachy.
His tone seemed sarcastic rather than victorious, George noted apprehensively.
Now, I'll admit,
Fission Chip said reasonably,
that I'm under the influence of some bloody drug from the Kool-Aid. But this simply cannot all be hallucination. Very definitely, 13 people took their clothes off and started dancing. I quite certainly heard them singing Blessed Be, over and over. Then a simply gigantic woman rose up from somewhere, and all the sirens and undines and mermaids went back into the water. If this was Armageddon, it was not precisely the way the Bible described it. Is that a fair summary of the situation?
The tree he was talking to didn't answer.
Blessed be, blessed be.
Lady Velcor sang on as she and her hastily assembled coven danced widdershins in their circle. The spell had worked. With her own eyes she had seen the Great Mother, Isis, rise up and smite the evil spirits of the dead Catholic inquisitors whom the Illuminati had tried to revive. She knew Hagbard Chelene would later be boasting in all the most chic occult circles that he had performed the miracle and giving the credit to that destructive bitch Eris, but that didn't matter. She, with her own eyes, had seen Isis, and that was enough.
Now, I ask you,
Fission Chips went on, addressing another tree, who seemed more communicative.
What the sulphurous hell did you see happening here tonight?
I saw a master magician,
said the tree,
or a master conman, the two are the same, plant a few suggestions and get a bunch of acid heads running away from their own shadows.
The tree, who was actually Joe Malik and only looked like a tree to poor befuddled 00005, added,
or I saw the final battle between good and evil, with Horus on both sides.
You must be drugged too,
Chip said pettishly.
You bet your sweet ass I am,
said the tree, walking away. Wolfgang and Winifred were very near shore when the dark, humped shapes rose out of the water around them. Winifred shrieked.
Wolfgang! For the love of God! Wolfgang! They are pulling me down!
And then there were two.
The porpoises have her,
Wolfgang thought to himself. He continued to swim madly toward shore. Something caught his trouser leg, but he kicked free. Then he was in the shallows, too close in for the sea beasts to follow. He stood up and waded ashore, and came face to face with John Dillinger.
Sorry, pal,
said John, and squeezed the trigger of his Thompson submachine gun. 30 silver bullets struck Wolfgang with the impact of clubs and threw him back into the water. All feeling was gone from his body, and he felt the foul tentacles closing around his mind, and the murmuring, horrible laughter grew into a soundless roar, and the syrupy voice spoke to his mind.
Welcome to the place prepared for you from everlasting to everlasting. Now truly you will never die.
And the mind of Wolfgang Sauer, imprisoned like a living fly in amber, knowing that it must remain so for billions upon billions of years, screamed and screamed and screamed. And then there was one. And Joe Malik, feeling as if he were sitting in an audience watching himself perform, walked over to that one and held out his hand.
"Congratulations,"
he said icily.
"You really did it."
Hagbard looked at the hand and said,
"You were more intimate the last time around."
"Very well,"
said Joe.
"My lord, my enemy."
He leaned forward and kissed Hagbard full on the mouth. Then he took the gun out of his pocket and carefully fired directly into Hagbard's brain. And then there were none. It was quite real. Joe shook himself, stood up and grinned. Walking over to Hagbard, he took out the gun and handed it to him.
"Surprise ending," he said. "I read all the clues, just like you wanted me to. I know you're the 5th Illuminatus Primus, and I know your motive for wiping out the other 4 is nothing like you've led us to believe. But I can't play my role. I still trust you. You must have a good reason."
Hagbard's mouth fell open in completely genuine surprise.
"Well, sink me,"
he said, beginning to laugh.